Dear colleagues, good morning. We're very happy to have all of you here, our faculty members. Welcome to HEC. We're very happy to have you here back again. Also the guest of our seminar. As you know, our center is not that old, we're just like 11 years old, but we do have some long-standing tradition, and one of them is to have Russian summer school of institutional analysis. This year there's going to be 10th summer school, so that's kind of anniversary. And before the summer school, the day -1, we have a workshop. And the idea of the workshop is to present what we are doing at the Center for Institutional Analysis. Because at the summer school, we go on with you to discuss the papers of our participants, and I feel a little bit discriminated because we don't have any time left to discuss what we are doing. That's why we have a workshop to present our recent ideas and research, and we're happy to have your feedback. And as usual, we have 4 papers to discuss. Those are all papers in progress. So basically there is no papers yet, just short descriptions. So your comments or critique and throw everything away comments like are very much appreciated. So we have 4 papers and coffee break in the middle. So we'll start with the first paper, and the first paper will be presented by Ilya Prakhov on academic salaries in Russia. Ilya, you're welcome to open.
Thank you. Hello, nice to see you this warm Moscow morning. My purpose today is to present my project about the determinants of academic salary in Russia. First, let me say some words about the motivation for this study. Studying the structure of academic contracts in Russia is very interesting, and Russia is a very interesting case because nowadays we have an ongoing debate about the transition of contractual relationship between universities and the professoriate in Russia. And recently, just a few years ago, we had a newly introduced option of incentive contracts in the universities, and still many educational institutions are adjusting the existing contracts in universities towards the new incentive system. The second thing is that now Russia is trying to become more global in the sense of global academic environment, and Russia is striving to get some of its universities into international rankings, so we call it international rankings game, which actually requires a shift from teaching in universities toward research activities. But still we have a Soviet legacy, so-called Soviet legacy, while teaching was mainly in the universities, and the universities were concentrated on teaching, while the research activities were conducted in the research institutes of the Academy of Sciences. Now, because of the reforms, it's quite important to evaluate the contracts and the structure of contracts which would properly motivate the academic staff. And here is the list of recent reforms. The first concerning academic contracts and concerning salaries. The first 2 reforms were in 2006 and in 2008, and that was the introduction of a completely new type of educational institutions of higher education. There was an introduction of federal universities and the national research universities with the main focus not on teaching but on research. As I already said, the effective contracts were introduced in 2012 and they were followed by several presidential decrees concerning the salaries. Here are some examples of those. For example, by 2000 18, the average salary of university teaching and research staff should be not less than 100% of the average regional salary. Then these facts are concerned with international rankings and the position of Russian universities in them. Yes?
Is there any reason for the 2.44%? I mean, is there any rationale behind that specific number that you are?
I cannot say, but somehow this figure was obtained. Well, the president said that.
2.44%. It's surprisingly precise. I mean, if I were coming up with.
Yeah, actually, it was stated in the decree. Yeah. So maybe some calculations lie behind that. In a few years, at least 5 Russian universities should be among the first 100 of the world's leading universities according to the world ranking of universities, and we call this project 5 100, and many efforts now are towards this movement toward leading positions. And by 2015, the share of publication by Russian researchers in Web of Science should be increased. As you know, that professors in academia have not only monetary incentives. They have non-monetary incentives such as respect by colleagues, reputation, they can get utility from academic work, and they can enjoy academic freedom. So this is also important when we saying about the reasons for the professor to stay in the university. Still, there are monetary mechanisms such as salaries, grants, and external fundings, and actually studying all those mechanisms is quite interesting, but in this study I'm concentrated only on university salaries and on the determinants of the professor's salary in Russia. At each time, the professor can combine several activities in the universities. Those are teaching activities, research activities, and administrative duties. And in the long run period, higher salary should be compensated by higher experience and seniority. But university as an organization has its own features which distinct, for example, the university from the private firm. And one of potential concern and difficulty is the high level of information asymmetry between the professor and university administration, and between the professor and other universities. And that is why it's very important to evaluate the observed indicators of professor's performance, both in static aspect and in dynamic aspects. Here are some results of previous research, and I think here is nothing new for you. So these are indicators of research productivity, books, papers, dissertations, time devoted to research, indicators of teaching productivity which were included in previous studies, so rankings of professor, average scores based on students' evaluations, time devoted to teaching, and so on, and the indicators of the administrative duties. So if the professor held the administrative position in the past, or he currently involved in administrative duties, or how much time a professor spends on the administrative tasks.
So
And
it strikes me as
yeah.
weird in your literature reviews that all the years are starting with 1.9.
Yeah.
There are like no research in.
Yeah, actually, the most of research was done in the past, and those research has been done on the American academic market, and since that. There was no research concerning the structure of academic contracts. So
I suspect that's not really because there is this opportunity and nobody uses that. I think that's because it's hard to compare things in different universities. Let me give you an example. In Belfast, everybody has to have an administrative duty. I'm running seminars, right? This is a very different administrative duty compared to dealing with students' complaints, right?
Yeah.
I'm officially spending as much time as the guy who is doing students' complaints, right?
Yeah.
Based upon all kinds of paperwork, we are doing exactly the same administrative duty. I promise you, he would swap his administrative duty with mine at any moment. I promise you that, you know, this is not an indicator of research or academic or teaching abilities or anything. There is bureaucracy in different universities done differently. It's hard to compare contracts in different universities. You're probably dealing with one university.
Not the one university. Let me explain. I use literature on the American academic market, and really this topic was investigated in 1970s to 1990s. But I'm interested in the case of Russia because Russian system of higher education has its own features, and I'll try to explain it a little bit later. So I use this as a ground, as a start for my hypothesis of the study.
So my point is, it seems that you're using old research. The reason that you're saying is that nobody did any research.
Actually, I looked for current research, but I was not successful. And really, at first, when I started working with this topic, I was surprised that the literature on this topic is quite old. But I would say that perhaps this is the only what we have for now.
So my suspicion is that that's because you can't really compare contrasts in different universities.
Actually, there were studies in the United States where different universities were compared and different studies were compared. So these studies are not the cases of only one university. So there were comparisons between studies and within studies. So here, this is just a list of indicators of different types of professors' activities, which are usually to be included in the equation when estimations the inputs of professors' work.
Is that the kind of data that you have? Is that the kind of data that you have?
Let me continue. Okay, I will go on with the data, with the sample, with the model, and so on. Okay?
Sure.
Thank you. These are the results, the main results, and mostly all of them say that the main predictors of predictor of professor's salary is research activity, and the results for teaching are quite ambiguous. So teaching can be slightly significant or insignificant at all, and in some studies they show that administrative duties has positive effects, and these results which were obtained in the American academic market is quite interesting and important for this study, because all of these studies emphasize the importance of research on academic salary. And in these studies, the universities which were included in the sample were those which were mostly concentrated or at least combining both research activities and teaching activities. So there were no pure teaching universities. And here are the results for academic salary in a dynamic aspect. So according to human capital theory and agency theory, higher seniority, the time professor works for his current employer in current university should be compensated by higher salary, but the results which were obtained on the American academic labor markets actually do not correspond with those which were obtained on non-academic labor markets. And it's a tricky thing because in America, they say that higher seniority had a negative impact on academic salary. And here are possible explanations. Why was that? First of all, decline in productivity. Maybe when the professor is getting older, his productivity can decline. Then the existence of asymmetric information between professor and administration. The existence of moving costs. Yeah?
Just clarification. Salary, you consider just only the plain salary or also including...
No, the pure salary he gets from his university.
Yeah, so without any...
Without grants, without external funding. Yeah, yeah. We consider just the salary. Yeah. Then the existing of moving costs, because in some areas in America, universities are not concentrated and they can be located far from each other, so the moving costs can occur, and as the consequence there can be a monopsony on academic market when they have only the only employer who can keep the professor in this university. Then there are tenure contracts and professional unions, and those can also influence the professor's salary. But Russia has some distinctive features from the American academic market. As I already told, that before the introduction of effective contracts, of incentive contracts, the main focus was not on research but on teaching. We don't have monopsony on academic market and we don't have moving costs. However, the mobility between universities is still low. We don't have, in most cases, we don't have tenure contracts, and professional unions are hardly exist. But we have a special feature of Russian academic market is inbreeding, when the universities hire their own graduates for work. So,
that's kind of monopsony, right? It's kind of a monopsony. Like if you're a graduate, not a big state, you're not going to find a job.
Kind of, but still the graduate have a set of options where to work. So they're not a monopsony in case that there is only one university in the city. Yeah, but certainly yes, they just stick to each other, and the inbreeding is quite widespread in Russia. But I wouldn't say that it's a kind of monopsony, because still the university graduates have a choice where to go.
But I think his point is correct, because you cited the American literature on monopsony, but even those stories, they have more options than Russian professors do. So if that's monopsonistic, then Russia is even more monopsonistic. Because the papers in a monopsony they don't say they have zero choice. They just say there's limited choice. But by that standard, Russia is surely more monopsonistic than the US.
Yeah, in this case, yes, but in case that the only employer is not. Yeah.
But given that you cited the literature on monopsony, just using that as the standard, you cannot then say there's no monopsony. That is, there's some monopsony power. It's just like you can have degrees of monopoly power, correct? So for instance, if there's only one gas station in the center of Moscow and you have to drive 5 kilometers, you have a choice, but we would agree that that's monopsony, yes?
In this case, yes, certainly.
So
yeah.
But that's the same thing with this, right?
It's not inbreeding because they like to work in the same place. It's because they cannot find a job if their advisor is not working there.
Actually, they can find a job in another university.
Of course.
Is this a description of the state before the reforms, during?
Yes, it's the state. It's the time 2012, just shortly after the reforms were introduced, and the system not adapted to the new mechanisms.
So again, the question is, how the decrees changed this picture? Are they addressing?
Which checks?
Are they introducing tenure? Are they fostering?
They are introducing contracts which should motivate university professors spend more time on research. So include research in their activities, that's in aesthetical aspects and in dynamical aspects. These are the features of the Russian markets, yeah. And this list is that the influence of seniority to wage can be not negative, but can be positive, because there are some distinctions from the American explanations why the relationship is negative.
Yeah. So a suggestion would be to have this picture before the changes and what the legislative changes are addressing here. So if you are addressing the first point, research, well, the decree of 2012, this is the aim.
Okay.
We'll see the goal, if that is achieved or not.
Okay, thank you. So let me go on with the empirical part of the study. We use data of the Changing Academic Profession project, a large-scale survey on academic profession which took place in Russia in 2012. This is a part of the international survey Changing Academic Profession, but the Russian sample was the Russian survey was conducted a few years later, but we used translated and adapted questionnaires, and the sample consisted of 25 institutions of higher education and 64 respondents, and each institution were interviewed. The sample covered 9 Russian regions, and the interviews were held only in accredited public institutions. And again, the survey was done at the moment shortly after the introduction of major reforms of contracts in university sector, but still federal universities and national research universities with the focus on research have been worked several years before the major reforms. So even before that, there were some reforms which would encourage professors to switch or at least to include some research in their activity.
Yeah, I think it's very important if you can say something about the 64 people, how they were chosen.
Randomly in the university. Randomly.
So from all stages.
There was a list of professor, yeah, who worked for the certain university, and there was a random sample in each university.
What about part-time people?
Huh?
What about part-time people?
There were no part-time people.
So you just kept the full-time?
Full-time.
Just professors.
Also, different levels. So junior professors, research assistants, they can be. Huh?
Could you pick a rector?
We could, but I don't think that there are any rectors in this sample.
No, I mean somebody higher up who is not turning money from.
If he's on the faculty list, if he also teaches something.
If he teaches something, okay.
Eventually
If he teaches something, okay.
So I guess here at the High School of Economics you have like 1,000 faculty, right?
Yeah.
This would be like 6%, but in a university of somewhere else, this would be like 64% of the
Yeah.
faculty. So would that affect somehow your estimates?
Well, we tried to adjust the procedure of sampling with those which were already done with the previous CAP project in other countries. So we had to follow the procedure of sampling.
I'm sorry, can we just give a chance to Ilya to finish his talk, because we're just running out of time already, and I think it is better to hear results and then to ask questions.
So this is a basic empirical model. It's the analog of Mincer equation, and I estimate the natural logarithm of the current annual salary which professor gets from the university, and I include the vector of research activities, teaching activities, administrative duties, and seniority. I used the models for experience and seniority for the experience, but the results are almost the same, and in order to avoid multicollinearity problem, we see that the correlation between experience and seniority is really high. I left only seniority in the model, and the coefficients of the regression represent a percentage change in salary caused by the increase of independent variable by 1. And here's the descriptive statistics. So we have indicators of research activity, indicators of teaching activity, and administrative duties, then experience, seniority. Those professors who work only in this university, national research universities, federal universities, and we have a control for gender. So let me go with the results of regression analysis. I did regressions for several samples. So for the whole sample, we can see that research matters, scholarly books or articles published. Teaching is important for the salary. Administrative duties have the greatest effect, and the effect is about 29%. Then seniority matters, and the influence of...
About the field.
The
field. About the field.
I haven't done it yet. So...
History people publish more books than economics people.
Okay, that will be my future task. Then I did regressions for subsample for those people who have a single job, those who work only in this institution and do not work anywhere else. So for these people, the probability that the university salary is the only source of income is really high, and the results are almost the same, but we have some ambiguity when we run regressions on subsamples on universities with no status, on national research universities and on federal universities separately. And there are differences in the compensation of different research activities. What I would say that both for universities with no status and for the entire sample and for those who work in the only institutions, in the only institution, male faculty get higher salary than women. So here we have some gender inequality, but this effect is insignificant if we consider national research universities and federal universities separately, and still we have some distinctions if we run regressions separately for male faculty and for female faculty. So for we have different determinants of research activity, then teaching matters only for male faculty, and the effect of administrative duties is higher for male faculty than for female faculty. But seniority is important and is statistically significant for all subsamples. So what we have ambiguous results for the indicators of research activity. But in general, the number of publications matter and positively affect academic salary. So this corresponds to the results from the American academic market. The role of teaching is expressed in hours of teaching per week, is positive for the whole sample, for the male faculty, but it's insignificant for other subsamples. The role of administrative duties is very important and can bring by 51% to the academic salary. And we discover some gender inequality, except universities with the special status. And the most consistent results were obtained for the national research universities, for those universities which are mainly concentrated on research, and research is motivated there by contracts, and as far as I know, some of the some incentive contracts were introduced there even before the major reform in Russian academic sector. And here are some further directions of research. First, we should work more precisely with the indicators of research performance. Then, as far as administrative duties matter, we should discover what are those duties. Unfortunately, the questionnaire of this survey didn't let us to know more about administrative duties. Then gender issues, why male faculty earn more than women, and that's why we need for new data after the introduction of incentive contracts in Russian universities and other major reforms in the national academic sectors. And so we hope to get new data in the next 2 years